A couple months ago, I ended up getting a discount card for a store where I buy videos and DVDs and music sometimes. And part of getting that discount card before I canceled it, within 30 days, you get a magazine subscription. So once a week for the last couple months, I've been getting these Entertainment Weeklies, and I might skim through them or something like that. And one of the things I started noticing, of course, is mostly about movies and TVs and comic book stuff that's in them. Now, being a guy who started reading comics and stuff in the late 70s, when I was about 4 or 5, it's really strange how over the last 10 years, mostly since the Iron Man movie came out in 2008, I think. So we're more 9 years going into 10 years. Um, a lot of people, there's still talks like comics have gone mainstream, and movies and TV to me are different. We have a genre of television and movies now that's mostly superhero stuff. So, but it's still very surreal to see these heroes, these DC and Marvel movies and whatnot, seeing them on TV in the mainstream, seeing them in the theaters. When I was a kid, you had Super Friends in the morning, Batman in the morning. Christopher Reeve's Superman was just hitting in the late 70s. You had television shows like Wonder Woman and the Hulk. As we went through the 80s, you started seeing Kirby and picking up little influences here and there of these comic book guys with Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Thundar the Barbarian, the Incredible Hulk cartoon, the Ruby and Spears Superman, things like that. And then going to the 90s, it got real. We started getting great cartoons and things like The Tick, Batman the Animated Series, this big guy Arrested Robot, Freakazoid, which was basically Mike Allred's Madman. Then we also had like the Tim Burton Batman movies, The Shadows. It just kind of came in waves. Nothing was really serious. And then we were having Marvel TV movies and movies made by like Roger Corman of the Fantastic Four and things like that to keep the licensing deals. They weren't serious movies. So after going through these, I've cut out some articles, and I'll probably keep this up. And these, I'll show you what these articles are in a minute. But back in the day, you had word of mouth. You had, as a kid, you really couldn't get to a comic book shop, and so you would get magazines like this. This is from December of '81, so it was probably this thing probably came out in October of '81. News. The closest thing to real mainstream I saw with comic books was when Superman turned 50, and John Byrne was able to draw the Superman on the cover of Time. Clark Kent popping his shirt open with that big S in the way. But you had amazing heroes. You had things like the comic book collectors. Now some of these you could find, like these books, Comic Scene, you would find in grocery stores. And actually, this is from 1991, I think. Talking about the news, Rob Liefeld's Young Blood was about to hit, and comics were so its own thing back in the day that you would have fans write into the letters columns of these magazines, and they would submit art for fun. I don't think anybody, the majority of them, I don't think they had any aspirations to being professional and stuff. But it was kind of fun to read these and see what was coming out. And I remember some of my friends looking at these. Okay, so they would sit there and sometimes they would find something that was kind of cool. It was about a Disney cartoon, but I would watch them. They were just sort of like overwhelmed and wondering what the hell were they reading. And this is where I first found The Crow. This is the very article. I did a video on The Crow, I think December of last year or the year before or something like that, talking about this. So I was able to finally find it. But this is where I was introduced to The Crow by Mike W. Barr, James O. Barr. So yeah, and it kind of paid off where it was its own thing, and comics were not mainstream. They still had a stigma. You would get these magazines, and unless there was a few other collectors in town, you didn't really have a lot of competition. And there would just be things you love in this. Like this issue has pages and pages of Jim Lee X-Men art that's just I don't think he's ever topped. Then you get some posters and stuff. And even before that, you had fanzines. You would get on a mailing list. This is like in the 60s and 70s, probably into the 80s. And this was sent to me over the years on YouTube, man. And it's articles from classic fanzines and stuff, if I remember right. So it just kind of amazes me that after all the stigma and how comic books was its own thing on the spinner rack, and when you did get something on TV, it wasn't really very good or top quality, and now it's like all over the place in movies and things. And again, I still think comic books, movies, and televisions are three different things. If comic books really were mainstream, the sales would be like unbelievable compared to some of these shows. So here's some articles that I went through here, and you're going to kind of see what I'm talking about, right? So yeah, we have this ad here that's drawn, but basically it's if you look for it, it's all new original shows based on the CW TV hits, where books are sold and stuff. It's based on the television shows, right? And then you have these pages at the bullseye into the at the last page of these entertainment weeklies. It kind of talks about pop culture. And the magic for me, I'm having superhero fatigue. I don't watch the television shows regularly or hardly at all, and I'm getting to where I don't really have the urge to go to the movies. But at least with the magic of the Marvel movies, it's the minor characters or the rare characters, the characters you never thought you would see in a movie, like Gila here. Great Jack Kirby design. Captain America had Dum Dum Dugan in it. It's things like that make it really cool to me. Again, television show. And what I like here is the Punisher. Out of all the Netflix shows, I don't think I've finished on one of them. I came close with a few of them. I think they're full of filler. I think those episodes should be 40 to 45 minutes long. They go really slow. They can be told in 6 episodes. Until this one, I watched the first episode of The Punisher on Netflix the day that it came out, and I was like, they finally got it right. Still not perfect. And here's another ad. Here's the shows here. Sorry about the blurriness, man. But, we have Iron Fist, The Defenders, Luke Cage, Daredevil, and The Punisher, and Jessica Jones. And I'm not saying they didn't have great moments in these shows, but if I see one more trailer for one of these shows where they're walking down an empty hallway fighting somebody or getting shot at, that's enough. And this is what I mean. This really isn't about comic books, but, it's not always great for the movies and stuff to go mainstream. Because look at this. We have the Justice League on the same page as the Spice Girls. Talk about cheese. So that's what I mean. It's sometimes there's something that's very hidden, quiet, secret, and special. And kind of once it goes mainstream, there's a little bit of it lost in there. And of course, here's like a 2-page spread talking about television shows. Now, if you had told me even 10 years ago there have been so many shows, I mean, I know we had Smallville, and I've seen shows over the years that should have been should have been its own comic book. Man from Atlantis, which there was an adaptation of that. That was a comic book for a while after the show. But you had like Misfits of Science, Manimal, Automan, things like that come out. And if you told me even 10 years ago all these shows would have been out, Flash, CW Supergirl, which is just not for me. Gotham, I gave it another shot. People were right. It's getting better. It seems to ebb and flow. Arrow. Now, the magic of these TV shows that it doesn't make everybody comic book collectors. By no means. There's people that enjoy their shows, people who collect the DVDs and get into the shows, maybe the whole CW universe with these characters. I hate that Constantine didn't last much longer. But what I have seen is that in my experience, I've yet to see anybody become a comic book collector. I've seen them become a fan of the character. I can't count the number of people that I've seen collecting the Mike Grell run of Green Arrow. They back up and they get a character. They become a fan of a character, Um, and then there's lots of articles on Thor and the Marvel Universe and stuff. Thor's secret weapon. There's a 2-page spread. Thor Ragnarok, yeah, whatever. And then we're even getting exclusive shows on Hulu. They're having the Runaways. That was a Brian K. Vaughan creation there. Like I said, whatever the movie is what they do the article on. Whatever the TV show's going on. And this article here was kind of cool with what I'm talking about, right? I think one of the reasons I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing of the Justice League here is basically because with what I grew up with. You come in here and you see this. A lot of people complained about Flash and his costume, but here's what we almost got. Okay, let's see if I can get that on there. Okay, they tried to do a show, and I think they shot a pilot for the Giffen DeMantis era of Justice League. That's what I mean. I've seen these things done so cheesy and bad and stuff. They're even having people do articles on the history of these characters, which just cracks me up. So yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm a little bit more forgiving about some of the stuff I'm seeing. But then there was progress here. I found 3 articles here that just blew my mind. Okay, this is a 2-page spread. All right, celebrating the king of comic books. This is from Entertainment Weekly, man. I never thought I would ever see a Mr. Miracle Mania going on, or much less a Commandy book even anywhere in a magazine. Now, let me tell you something. At least up until seriously like 10 years ago, even other comic book collectors would kind of look at you kind of weird for getting something like Commandy and stuff. I'm a Commandy Nomad nut because that's where you're going deep into fandom. This would have been Kirby's, oh my gosh, what birthday? 100th birthday this year? Oh, sorry, I'm shooting a video, and yeah, he'd been 100 years old. What's wild is I have all these books and this whole run, and to pick that cover where you have the devil. That was before the grasshopper got another name. Giant grasshopper is known as the devil, I think. And Jack Kirby came in with this. This is a Baxter series from the '80s, where they published 2 issues of the original New Gods issues and comics, the run from the '70s, and Jack Kirby got to come in and add art to it and sort of finish off his Fourth World book. With then he had the Hunger Dogs, but I digress. But to see Commandy, Mr. Miracle, New Gods, Entertainment Weekly, along with a double-page spread about Kirby, that blows my mind. Then I also found this talking about Tom King's Mr. Miracle, and they have an interpretation that he's kind of like I'm not sure how they put it in here, but basically Tom King apparently has a fascinating backstory. He worked for the CIA in Iraq during the height of American invasion. His work on Mr. Miracle, a character created by World War II veteran and comics icon Jack Kirby, has given him another chance to reflect on the experience. So I don't know. It's a great series and stuff, right? But what started all this is that this is probably an issue I'm not going to bust up or anything. This is actually a pretty cool issue. I'm a huge fan of supernatural and stuff, and they do things in here, but what blew my mind in this is that they have an article on a single comic, The Sandman's 24 Hours. And I believe this was from number 6 of the series that came out in 1989. And basically, Dr. Destiny, an old Justice League villain that came out like in the 60s, early 60s, has the Sandman's amulet of power. And this was just a single issue where it took place in a complete 24 hours in a diner. And Dr. Destiny in that amulet makes these people do horrible, horrible things and dirty things to each other. And it was just in 24 hours. And they did an article on a book that came out almost 30 years ago, which is amazing. It blows my mind. That blows my mind that book's going to be 30 years old next year. All right, guys, so I just wanted to really do this video real quick to kind of just say it's very surreal for me to see all this stuff in mainstream books. Even, it's not even really about if comic books still have a stigma, which I think they do, and that there's a difference between TV shows and movies, and people can be a fan of those. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just very surreal for me to have lived so long. I mean, over 20 years and stuff, even longer than 20 years, almost 30 years, that this stuff had a huge stigma on it. So I think the stigma's gone a little bit, big time, because people are fans of these characters on the shows and stuff. And now they can have a dialogue and they can kind of talk a little bit, and maybe they're interested, and the comic book guys can tell them about these characters and stuff. But it's still very surreal for me to see all this stuff in like Entertainment Weekly and all these other magazines. I saw I'm not going to get it, but Life magazine apparently back in February of this year had this great big huge thick book that was sort of about comics and stuff. It was a one-shot from Life magazine, and I opened it up, flipping through it, and it had Ambush Bug in there, and it had the issue of Ambush Bug in there in a little blurb with the cover from #1. That's an homage to Action #1. They were talking about the Ambush Bug in the 80s. I'm like, what is going on? This is so surreal for me. Okay, guys, that's it. I'm starting to babble now, man. So you guys have a good one. Later.